So I have 3 sections of AP English, Language and Composition. And so I have about 70 students in those 3 sections. Then I have 1 section of creative writing, which I hadn't taught before, and 1 section of recreational reading. So about 12 of those kids have skills teachers or special ed. So they're reluctant readers and readers who find it difficult to read. So this year I've got a pretty broad spectrum of students. So like in creative writing too, there are maybe 3 or 4 who have taken AP classes or honors classes. And then there's a middle bunch, and then there are those who just have to get a writing credit, so they are there. So. All of that. I use them because students have grown up with rubrics, and many of the students like rubrics and maybe need a rubric. And I don't think it's so much for me grading it. I have no trouble justifying a grade that I will give. But I think it serves as a sort of a map that students can follow, a sort of a checklist to see if they, touched all the bases, if they did what they're supposed to do. But when it comes to grading, if I use a rubric, I find myself sort of using the rubric backwards. I look at the paper, say it's 100 points, I say that's an 85. Then I have to look at the rubric to see how I can get 85. So I have this sense of what an excellent paper is, a very good paper and a good paper and an average paper. And it's somewhat intuitive. So I find it, for me, more useful to look at it that way and then go back and see how it fits the rubric. Sometimes I've tried doing it the other way, just going through the different boxes. And I've seen rubrics that have 10 boxes. That's ridiculous. I try to keep it to 4 or 5 when I do use a rubric, and just kind of checking off boxes and tweaking numbers here and there. I can tweak the rubric so that it makes some sense, but I still find that a kid looking at a rubric doesn't tell them much, just to fill in a little box. The most effective thing, obviously, is to have a conference over the paper. When the students get a paper back, if they're not going to rewrite it, they don't care much about where they missed a point here, missed a point there. And writing isn't about missing a point here, missing a point there. It's not as objective as a rubric makes it seem. So, and maybe rubrics help some teachers correct more quickly, but I'm not a big fan of being tied to a rubric. So in creative writing, I'm working off plans that have been used by different teachers over the years, and I find the rubrics to really get in the way. So, but I do find that sort of helps the students do what they're supposed to do. I think it's sort of like it's one of those training wheels, kind of scaffold things that I think can help students and maybe help teachers to start with. But I don't think it's a really effective way to grade or give feedback on a paper. Yeah, and that's been a challenge, although this has been 2 months that I've had those courses, and I find the key with writing or reading or whatever you're teaching is to develop a relationship with the students. So what I've done with the recreational reading, to start with, I decided that I'm not going to worry about grades, and tell the students up front that if they work hard, put in some effort, they'll get a decent grade. And I compared it to an advanced Phi-Ed course. And I said, how do they grade you in Phi-Ed? And a couple of the students who've had advanced Phi-Ed courses said, well, you get a grade based upon effort and improvement. I said, you mean so the fastest person, the strongest person doesn't always get the A, or the slowest or weakest person doesn't always get a D? No. I said, okay, that makes sense to me. Or I said, in medals, you take medals. How do you get graded in medals? Well, a lot of it is, are you participating? Are you behaving? Are you cooperating? Are you doing your work? And are you showing improvement? So that makes good sense too, so let's do that. So starting with that, it's kept the students from feeling like they're going to fail. With the writing, I've stayed in close touch with their skills teachers, and I've let them turn papers in a bit late as long as they're getting them in. I think to say that you have to get this paper done in a week doesn't work for everybody. They've got different things going on that week. They write at different paces, and so I've been more flexible with deadlines. I think deadlines can kill. I think they really can. I think they can also keep the student from ever getting anything done, but I think there's a way of managing that to get them to get the work done, and not, force them to write when they're not ready, or force them to copy or to cheat or plagiarize or something like that. So I think it's I think grades really can get in the way for that reluctant student. They're just so used to failing. And if I can start with something easy, either in the writing or in the reading, and so they start getting some confidence, that helps a lot. And I don't have, I don't expect the same thing out of the kid who really just can't write very well than I do from the student who's been in honors. And so I don't have, kind of one standard for everybody. So I don't mind giving that student who's really struggled with writing, if they can write a paragraph that's pretty good, I don't mind giving them a decent grade. And I don't want that student who's been in honors, who takes creative writing, to just crank it out the night before, which might be the best paper in the class, and all of a sudden they would expect that they should have an A for that. So somehow I want to work with them to get them to improve. And if you make too much of the grade, then I think the good ones will stop short when they get a good grade, and the ones who are in the bottom will give up quickly because they can't get that good grade. So I think it's, look at what kids enjoy. They enjoy music, and they enjoy sports, or some of the kids enjoy the tech classes, the shop classes. But in those places, you're not getting graded. People are they're wanting to improve because they're enjoying what they're doing, or someone's encouraging them, or the group's encouraging them. But I think in too many classes, we spend way too much time letting the grades determine how the kid feels about themselves in that class. So what I've done is, because I want to let them know what the best stuff is. And so typically when I go over the paper, and if I'm sitting down with them, or if I'm writing comments on the paper, they'll have a chance to rewrite. And so then the criticism is useful and helpful because they can rewrite. And then I tell them, say more about this because this is strong. Develop this paragraph a bit more. You're going somewhere with this. Then they can do something about that. So with major papers, that's what I'll do is have them turn it in to me, and I will make these criticisms and say good things and bad things. But they have a chance to fix it. That's useful, I think. When they give me the final paper, I often just put a number on it, or maybe just check boxes in a rubric. Because at that point, if they're not going to be able to do more with it, I don't think either criticism or praise helps an awful lot. So I think if I'm not involved somewhere in the process before the final, then I'm just grading it, but I'm coaching along in the process. So I think to put that extra step in there, where the teacher makes all these comments on it and all these suggestions, but give them back to them and have them rewrite it. If they don't want to, they can take the B minus and just be done. But to say much for good or bad about a paper when it's over, I think is too late. So it's like a critic reading a book and telling the person what they thought of it. Well, it's too late for them to go back and change it, and so then it can be can make or break even a good writer, given what the critics are saying. But I think it's more important to get that before the final copy is there. You always want to leave the student feeling good about what they're doing. I am just convinced in life we build on our strengths. We know what our weaknesses are. And sometimes in writing, students don't. You have to point out what bad writing is and what inadequate writing is. But I think more often than not, they need to know where they're good, so they can build on that. So they can develop a voice or a style that is their own. So you look for that and try to praise that and build that up. And so I do find myself saying an awful lot more about what's good about the paper, especially if it's they're not going to get it back again for a rewrite. Because picking on weaknesses doesn't help a whole lot. Strengths can overcome weaknesses, but pretty hard to get rid of all your weaknesses in writing. I want them to believe they can write. I want them to have developed some discipline. I think it was Elizabeth George who said that it takes three things to be a writer. You have to have talent, you have to have passion, and you have to have discipline. And by far the most important is discipline. So I want them to realize that to write well you have to be disciplined, and you have to write a lot, and you have to rewrite a lot. I think more than anything over the years, that's what I've tried to teach the students, is that if you're going to write well, you have to write a lot. And it's kind of counterintuitive. I just got done giving this lecture to my AP students to get ready to write their first paper over this long weekend. I said in math or science, I think in high school at least, the best students get through the assignments quickly. It comes to them quickly. It doesn't take them nearly as long as the struggling students. I said, but when it comes to writing, it's just the opposite. The best writers I've had write and rewrite and rewrite. They spend the most time on a paper, not the least amount of time on a paper. And that's hard for students to grasp that because it's always been the other way around. The first one turn the assignment in, or the first one to get the homework done, that's who you go to because they know the most. But with writing, it just isn't that way at all. So I've tried to impress upon them how that is. And I found too, even as a teacher, that students who really want to write well and are committed to getting better because somehow that's important to them, it's not just a class and a grade, they'll bring their papers to me 2 or 3 times sometimes before they turned in to me, and we'll work on the paper, and I can give them some input and feedback and some ideas. So I guess I want students to realize that how hard writing is, but how rewarding it is to have said something well, to have been able to change someone's mind, to make people think because of what you wrote or how you expressed yourself. I think it's crucial. And I think too, we too often separate writing from thinking, and people want to think well. They want to think clearly. And with Google and with 30-second sound bites, people don't think well. They don't hear people think well. And if you don't write a lot and rewrite a lot, you're not thinking well. And so whatever subject is your favorite, writing helps you think well. So whether you are going to be a scientist, a mathematician, or a lawyer, or if you're going to be a salesperson of some kind, you have to think well and think clearly, and that's what writing does for you. So I want them to realize that writing is this human endeavor. If you can write well, then you can write a great Mother's Day or Father's Day card or a love letter or something like that, and you can really express yourself well. And so it isn't about doing well in school. It's just about living better and being a more understanding, wise, compassionate person who can sort things out in a world that's changing, that's very chaotic. And if you don't write, the world's going to seem crazy and chaotic. But if you can write well, then you can think well, and you can make some sense out of all that. And all of a sudden, things get a little simpler, and life gets a little better, I think. That was pretty good at the end there, wasn't it?
That was very meaningful.
But we do. We